Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Aminul Islam, HMO, Medicine Unit Blue, M. Abdul Rahim Medical College Hospital, Dinajpur. Our today's presentation is about approach to a patient of portal hypertension. Before going to clinical discussion, I want to discuss about the basic about portal hypertension. Anatomy of the portal venous system. This is the portal vein, and this is formed by the splenic vein and superior mesenteric vein. By the union of the splenic vein and superior mesenteric vein behind the posterior surface of the head of the pancreas. And this is the right and left branch of portal vein. Now, the definition of portal hypertension. Portal hypertension is defined as the elevation of the hepatic venous pressure gradient more than 5 millimeter of mercury. Clinically significant portal hypertension is present when gradient exceeds 10 millimeter of mercury. Risk of variceal bleeding increases beyond a gradient of 12 millimeter of mercury. Classification and causes of portal hypertension. Extrahepatic portal vein obstruction is the usual source of portal hypertension in childhood and adolescence, while cirrhosis causes at least 90% of cases of portal hypertension in adults. Schistosomiasis is the most common cause of portal hypertension worldwide, but is infrequent outside endemic areas. This is the cause and classification of portal hypertension. Number one, prehepatic and pre-sinusoidal cause. This is the area, pre-hepatic and pre-sinusoidal. Portal vein thrombosis due to sepsis, umbilical portal pymia or procoagulopathy or secondary to cirrhosis. Abdominal trauma including surgery. Number two, intrahepatic pre-sinusoidal, and this is the region. Causes are, most common cause is schistosomiasis. Then congenital hepatic fibrosis, drug vinyl chloride, and sarcoidosis. Number three, sinusoidal. This is the area, sinusoidal area. Most common cause is cirrhosis. Then polycystic liver disease, nodular regenerative hyperplasia, metastatic malignant disease. And number four, intrahepatic post-sinusoidal. This is the region, area, veno-occlusive disease. And number five, post-hepatic post-sinusoidal cause is Budd-Chiari syndrome. Now the pathophysiology of portal hypertension. Increased portal vascular resistance, which leads to gradual reduction in the flow of portal blood to the liver. Development of collateral vessels allowing portal blood to bypass liver, enter the systemic circulation directly. Collateral vessels formation progresses, more than half of the portal blood flow may be shunted directly to systemic circulation. Increased portal blood flow contributes to portal hypertension. Now the clinical features, splenomegaly is the cardinal finding. Increased portosystemic shunting that are evident by esophageal varices, caput medusa, hemorrhoids. Number three, fetor hepaticus, and number four, ascites. This should be noted that ascites is unusual in non-cirrhotic portal hypertension unless the albumin is particularly low. Investigations of portal hypertension. Portal hypertension, the diagnosis is often made clinically. Then portal venous pressure measurement by a balloon catheter to differentiate between sinusoidal and pre-sinusoidal forms. Number three, blood findings may reveal thrombocytopenia. Then anemia. If anemia is found, it's maybe due to bleeding. Number four, upper J endoscopy to find out the gastroesophageal varices. Number five, ultrasonogram often shows features of portal hypertension such as splenomegaly and collateral vessels. Number six, CT scan and MRI angiography to identify the extent of portal vein clot. and to no hepatic vein potency. Complication of portal hypertension, including variceal bleeding that may be esophageal, gastric, and others, ascites, congestive gastropathy, hypersplenism, iron deficiency anemia, renal failure, hepatic encephalopathy. Clinical approach to a portal hypertension. If a case of portal hypertension is established, then we have to find out whether the cause of portal hypertension is cirrhotic or non-cirrhotic. Firstly, our thinking should be directed towards the cirrhosis of liver, as it encompasses 90% portal hypertension. Then, other infrequent causes of portal hypertension may be due to schistosomiasis, portal vein thrombosis, metastatic malignant disease, and less commonly Budd-Chiari syndrome. Then we can diagnose the cause of portal hypertension by taking history, doing general and physical examination, and by investigations. If we think the cause of portal hypertension is cirrhosis, then we can approach by following ways to establish the diagnosis. By taking history of previous jaundice, history of previous hepatitis B virus or hepatitis C virus infection, history of prolonged alcohol intake, history of diabetes mellitus, obesity or dyslipidemia, and history of any genetic or autoimmune disease. Physical findings: if there is any stigmata of CLD, we can find spider telangiectasia, Palmar erythema, cyanosis, bruise, purpura, epistaxis, pigmentation, and digital clubbing. And in case of men, there may be gynecomastia, testicular atrophy, impotence. And in case of women, there may be breast atrophy, irregular menstruation, and amenorrhea. Investigation: although cirrhosis is a histological diagnosis, we can do an ultrasonography of hepatobiliary system, prothrombin time, and serum albumin. If the cause cirrhosis is not established, then other causes of portal hypertension should be sought out by taking relevant history, physical examination, and by doing investigations. Now, the management of portal hypertension. The management of portal hypertension is largely focused on the prevention and or control of variceal bleeding. The primary prevention of variceal bleeding. Number one, propranolol 80 to 160 mg per day or nadolol 40 to 240 mg per day is effective in reducing portal venous pressure. Carvedilol, a non-cardioselective vasodilating beta blocker, is also effective and may be better tolerated at dose of 6.25 to 12.5 mg per day. Management of acute variceal bleeding. The priority in acute bleeding is to restore the circulation with blood and plasma. All patients with cirrhosis and gastrointestinal bleeding should receive prophylactic broad-spectrum antibiotics such as oral ciprofloxacin or intravenous cephalosporin or piperacillin tazobactam, because treatment with antibiotics improves outcomes. The measures used to control acute variceal bleeding include vasoactive medications, that is terlipressin, and there may be other procedures like endoscopic therapy, bending or sclerotherapy, or balloon tamponade, transjugular intrahepatic portosystemic stent shunting, TIPS, rarely esophageal transection. Pharmacological reduction of portal venous pressure in variceal bleeding. Terlipressin is a synthetic vasopressin analog that, in contrast to vasopressin, can be given by intermittent injection rather than continuous infusion. The dose is 2 mg IV 4 times daily until bleeding stops, and then 1 mg 4 times daily for up to 72 hours. Caution is needed in patients with severe ischemic heart disease or peripheral vascular disease because of the drug's vasoconstrictor property. That is the summary of emergency management of bleeding. In case of emergency management of bleeding, we can do firstly intravenous fluid to replace extracellular volume, then vasopressor, terlipressin to reduce portal pressure, acute bleeding, and risk of early rebleeding. Then prophylactic antibiotics, cephalosporin IV, to reduce incidence of spontaneous bacterial peritonitis. Emergency endoscopy to confirm variceal rather than other bleeding, ulcer bleeding. Variceal band ligation to stop bleeding. Proton pump inhibitor to prevent peptic ulcers. Phosphate enema and or lactulose to prevent hepatic encephalopathy. Terlipressin, there are caution in patients with significant coronary artery, peripheral or other vascular disease should be taken. Interventional therapy in case of acute variceal bleeding. Bending, ligation and sclerotherapy. It stops variceal bleeding in 80% of patients and can be repeated if bleeding recurs. Bending is repeated every 4 to 6 weeks until the varices are obliterated. Sclerotherapy, a technique in which varices are injected with a sclerosing agent. Interventional therapy, balloon tamponade. This technique employs a Shanks-taken Blackmore tube. This technique may be used in the event of life-threatening hemorrhage if early endoscopic therapy is not available or is unsuccessful. The tube should be passed through the mouth and its presence in the stomach should be checked by auscultating the upper abdomen while injecting air and by radiology. This is the Shanks-taken Blackmore tube introduced into the stomach and esophagus. This is the approach of acute variceal bleeding due to portal hypertension. Suspected variceal hemorrhage, start IV terlipressin and antibiotic prophylaxis. Then urgent upper gastrointestinal endoscopy, whether it is varices present or not. If there is present, endoscopic therapy, variceal bending or sclerotherapy. If there is hemostasis present, then continue terlipressin to 72 hours, introduce beta blocker as secondary prophylaxis. Enter patient into endoscopic bending program to obliterate varices. If there is no hemostasis, then further endoscopic therapy or balloon tamponade or emergency tips. And if there is no varices present, then stop terlipressin, treat as for non-variceal hemorrhage. Secondary prevention of variceal bleeding. Beta blockers are used as a secondary measures to prevent recurrent variceal bleeding. And this is the all about portal hypertension. Thank you all for your patience.